Our world has been rocked today by the death, murder in broad daylight of our friend Charlie Kirk. We'll discuss tonight on The Mandate. I'm Matthew Peterson, here with my Blaze family, Jill Savage and Christopher Bedford, on this tragic day.
Well, I can't imagine that we are here doing this show today. It's going to be a difficult one, but we'll get through it because we have to.
Yeah, this is a time in which we talk about political violence. We see these things happen. We see the assassinations against Trump. What just happened not very long ago was something that unfolded, across this entire political movement, as well as, the audience and the country. Charlie Kirk was a leader of that movement like none other. Charlie Kirk built an organization and helped build a movement that ultimately propelled him to the very heights of American politics. He was someone who is constantly building, constantly doing, and ultimately helped shape the Trump administration, and both in terms of staffing and guidance. And what we saw today was unspeakable evil, really a political assassination of someone who was a political leader. This was someone who is a bright light, who I'd first met at the Claremont Institute's Lincoln Fellowships, who desired to be there. Famously, Charlie didn't go to college. Incredibly smart guy. He sought out wisdom. He sought out knowledge. He was a very sharp student, and he constantly adjusted and changed when he learned new things or saw new things as he was building and helping to make America great. And so when you look at what he built, Turning Point USA, $80+ million a year. They do incredible work throughout the country. You look at his influence on the new right, his influence on the election and helping Trump win that election and then staff his administration. He was an incredible, incredible human being who never stopped doing, who never stopped learning, and who never stopped building. And ultimately, I think that what he wanted to be was a statesman. I just did an interview with him a few months ago. 2 months ago, it was in July, and we sat down at a J.D. Vance event and talked about, I asked him, what do you think statesmanship is? And it occurred to me as I was speaking with him that this was his goal. This is what he wanted to become, an American statesman who changed things for the good. And that is what he did. And our prayers go out for the repose of his soul and for his family, and also for our divided nation.
What does statesmanship mean to you?
Well, practically, I think we saw statesmanship on display from the president recently, where he was displayed with two options. The one was do absolutely nothing with Iran and just ignore it. The other one was, hey, go full regime change, John Bolton style. And the statesman first has to know what you want. You have to have what the telos is, right? Which is you have to have a destination. And so President Trump had a destination, which is like, well, there's a problem here. We've been talking about Iranian nuclear weapons for 20 years. He has. But I want American revitalization and not a Middle East quagmire. So he had a very firm destination in mind. And I think so often is that people who think they are statesmen or people who play statesmen on TV, there is no aim. There is no destination. There is no final form or final product. Where President Trump worked backwards, he said, okay, I want this to be wrapped up within a week. That was his first. So how do I do this where I can have Iran have no nuclear weapons, but I ran on a mandate of disentangling ourselves from these endless conflicts, from no more quagmires, and then, of course, resisting the calls for regime change. And so that's what I think it means practically.
Chris, this was Charlie. I mean, he's a man on a mission. He was a man on a mission, and we're going to get into what we know about happened today. But this is someone who was driven to make America great, and that's why he attracted all the followers he did, and that's why people throughout this country are heartbroken today.
Yeah, that's one side of Charlie that he projected publicly that so many people knew. That was the first contact with conservative ideology or conservative political thought or Christian political thought that so many people ever had. But the strange side of Charlie, which I didn't expect and was shocked by when I first met him, was sweetness, humility, which really surprised me, soft-spoken, kind. He had taken personal interest in people. You knew him through Claremont. I knew him through some hunting and fishing trips that our late friend Foster Freeze put together, and then later on through podcasts and events. Big, glitzy, glamorous, shiny, light-filled things with all kinds of celebrities, but he was not like that. Not in person. Someone who's married, someone with 2 children under 2, but I looked at you guys when this show started and how I felt and how I've been talking with my wife. And I was watching earlier when we were all had all the channels on. You had Fox going and this and that, and everyone who's come on had tears in their eyes or were choking them back. And those are people who knew him because he knew a lot of people. But there are millions more in this country, millions and millions who felt like they knew him or got to speak with him, or he shared a kind word with them at these rock star events that he threw. People like my wife who met him, she was a year older than him, but she met him at George Washington University in college. He was someone who helped introduce her to her way of thinking. He came by her class. You got to talk with him. Since later on, got to do some shows and events with him. And he was instrumental in helping shape some of her political ideas. And like you said, he was someone who's willing to change. When he argued with Tucker famously back in the day about what is the role of government in citizens' lives, he came away with a different point of view on that and became an evangelist for it. An incredibly hardworking guy. I mean, I've been with him and he's been trying to make it to the airport for his one of maybe 3 or 4 flights that day because he's got so many events he has to go to, so many people he has to reach out to. And lastly, this awful irony of this whole thing. There's a disingenuous amongst Democrats and the left who claim that they just want a dialogue, they just want to talk, they just want civil discourse. Where did civility go? Well, he would go to college campuses, which are not actually places of freedom and dissent and going back and forth of ideas. And he'd sit down, not on a stage, but an eye level, surrounded by people, and he'd say, people who disagree with me, come forward. And he was not. A lot of videos go viral of right-wing speakers going to different places and being rude and putting people down. And you didn't really see that from Charlie. I mean, sometimes he made people look stupid because they were, but it wasn't obviously at his intent. And he debated people, not people he knew. A lot of people in DC, a lot of people around the country, they don't like to debate people who are smarter than them or they don't know what the point is going to be. They like very controlled environments, kind of like WWE versions of political debate. That was not what he was doing. And he would answer questions and he'd have a dialogue and he'd talk to students like they were people. And they murdered him. It's like they tried to murder the president. It's like they murdered those school kids who were praying at mass. The violence is unbelievable, and it's really one way, despite what the left likes to claim. And it's a serious problem. And I tell you what, one woman I know who's not, she just follows politics tangentially. One of my friend's wives, she texted me and said, I'm feeling really delicate right now. Not delicate like a flower, delicate like a bomb. And there's a lot of anger. And I think the people who are dismissing him, like the New Republic put out some piece that called him a MAGA troll. Well, those trolls at the New Republic are going to learn that he was a lot more than that to a lot of people. And they've just killed a cultural figure, not a politician, not a businessman, but a cultural figure who touched a lot of lives and was in a lot of living rooms with people and was on their personal devices and was on their Instagram feeds and TikToks and came into their classrooms and talked to them on campus and touched a lot of people. And they've done a dumb thing.
Yeah, I want to get back to that reaction that a lot of people feel, delicate like a bomb is right. But I just want to, two points you made that I think are just key to bring out about Charlie. The humility is real. I mean, just behind the scenes and on the stage, the fact that he got in a famous argument with Tucker, right? And how many people do we know in this industry who would never do this? Who got in a big argument and then came around and went back to Tucker and asked him questions and came back around and was begging to come into Claremont just because he's like, no, I want to learn this. And I thought, really, what is he really going to be like? And that humility was always there in a way that was striking for anyone, in this industry or anyone just as political leader. He was constantly learning. And then to the hard work point, I mean, I remember one time at Mar-a-Lago was one of these events where he raised, like $20 million in a night. And I stayed there the whole night, not for the same reasons he was. I was just being a reprobate. But I was also interested in watching what was going on. And we were like the last people there, right? So there's no one else there. There's like one drunk guy kind of going. And of course, I wasn't drunk. I was perfectly sober. But I'm sitting there and watching Charlie with his team, like recapping the entire night with his entire team of people from low to high, and just watching him go through, recap, and kind of give them praise. And I walked away. I was like, how do you do this, right? And I just listened to him about how he did what he did, because there was no detail too small. And what you say, though, is more essential to really talk about, is the fact that he touched so many lives still throughout the country. And when these people who are writing these articles now, who are acting like, this is just a bump in the road in American politics, boy, they are wrong. They are really wrong. And, we really need to think seriously about what's going to happen in this country next.
That is absolutely what it is. Charlie Kirk is the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA, and this is going to be a turning point for us. Charlie Kirk, let's get through some of the details. He has died at the age of 31. He was on his American comeback tour, right? This is what we knew, that he was going around with the month of September. He had so many dates on his calendars going around to different college campuses. Today, he happened to be at Utah Valley University. In that tent, that big tent that's above him, it says, "Prove me wrong," right? As Chris said. He just goes out there and is just of the people, trying to figure out, let's have a dialogue. If you disagree with me, come and talk to me. Try and change my mind, right? That's what he would always go through and say. And we're going to get different reports, I'm sure, as the hours, days, and weeks go by. But, what we know is that he was reportedly talking about trans shooters while he was on stage. Somebody in the audience was asking him a question, like they always do. He said, "How many trans shooters have there been in the last 10 years? And Charlie said, too many. That same audience member went on to say 5 and asked Kirk to proceed if he knew how many other mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years. And Charlie was asking, well, is this counting gang violence or not? And at that point, a loud pop was heard, and the crowd screamed as Charlie just went back into his seat. And we see not only just us, it's not only the regular people, but it's all the way up to President Donald Trump, who has said, at first that we all must pray for Charlie Kirk, who had been shot. He was a great guy, top to bottom. God bless him. And then as the news came out, Donald Trump came through and said, the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth of the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me. And now he's no longer with us. Melania, I'm sorry. And my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and his family. Charlie, we love you. But you just see, it's beyond one person. Mm-hmm. It is a movement that we see here.
Mm-hmm. No, and you see a movement who lost someone at its heart, who lost someone was its leader. And what Trump said was also really on the point. Charlie had the heart of so many youths in America. Charlie said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to young people who are on the other side politically, and I'm going to win them over. And you know what? He did. He did that. And what happened today is going to profoundly impact a generation of young people in America. This is going to forever alter their understanding of politics in America. And we need to be talking about that, because this was a political act. It is first and foremost, right, a terrible tragedy, a murder of a married man who now his children do not have a father, and his wife doesn't have a husband. But whoever the shooter was, whether crazy or not, this was a political act. And this man was in charge of a movement. And I don't think that many people in positions of power understand that movement. They don't understand these people. They don't understand this political movement was peaceful. He was trying to argue about violence the very day, the very hour, the minutes away from him being shot. So, there's a lot of waves of emotion that come about in events of this kind of tragedy. And the first one is sort of shock and then recognizing what happened. But, the quiet thoughts that are going to start to occur to people who are younger in America is, where is the violence problem in America? Where does that really come from? Why do we live in a world in which I see people, I want to go to my son's birthday party tonight after I wrap this show. And I'm going to have to look him in the eyes and think, I live in America where political leaders can be murdered in broad daylight in front of the entire nation. Because why? Because they're on one side of the aisle? It sure seems like the violence is one-sided, as Chris said. And, I would really hope that all sides would say sensible things and not the crazy things, Chris, you say you're already seeing, you're already seeing, coming out of these publications with people with fancy degrees who should know better.
Let's get to some of these leftist reactions that we see, because MSNBC, we know, is going to be right at the top of that list. MSNBC, let's go ahead and look at what the supporter fired in celebration, that clip.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
It was murder
the Taliban?
in
Do they
cold
think
blood.
that TPUSA is the Taliban? Shooting off guns in celebration? What are they even talking about?
No, it's a pure kind of cope. They can't handle actually looking at the reality of the situation that, dare I say, they've helped create. I mean, we have heard nothing but insane and violent rhetoric. We've seen nothing but violent rhetoric when it came to President Trump and the entire MAGA movement for a very long time. And Trump is literally Hitler, all this sort of stuff that would never have flown in any other context. And, it hasn't stopped. And this is a brutal wake-up call for America and for everyone in the audience that this division is still here. And, you could say, well, this is a one-off crazy person. We don't really know what's happened, which is true. But Charlie is still dead today. And these people are flapping their gums and talking. And you just expect to hear something reasonable from them. But I don't think we're seeing that yet.
No, and the division continues. Let's go ahead and watch MSNBC that Charlie Kirk is a controversial figure.
But following up what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
That is Matthew Dowd, who is blaming Charlie Kirk for being divisive today. Other leftist reaction, they are what you think they are. Sympathy for your enemies is cruelty for your friends. I don't support Charlie Kirk. F you, one person said. I swear if Hitler got shot right now, people would be saying, keep him in your prayers. Political violence is never okay. Like, no, you are just stupid and aren't ready for change. F Charlie Kirk. Lots of those on the internet. Charlie Kirk was evil and a dangerous person. The absolute worst of the worst. Racist, homophobe, climate change denier, race baiter. It goes on and on and on. Chris, for these reactions to be coming out right now, it's just insane. Like we can't even process this news yet, and yet they're going through and, oh, it's Hitler, oh, he's racist, oh, it's terrible. Can we have a moment to grieve?
They're such hateful people. There's so much hate in their heart. It's twisted them so much. And they hate Charlie, and they hate you. They hate Matt. They hate me. They hate our families. They hate Republicans. They hate the Republican next door. They hate their Republican aunts and uncles. They hate their Republican plowman. They're just so filled with it. It drips from them. And they feel completely justified in what they do all the time. Because when you imagine yourself as some kind of heroic figure, which they're not, and you imagine your enemies as literal Hitler because they're stupid, then you can justify a whole lot of things. You can justify some pretty extreme violence, which is what they've been doing. I mean, we've been living with this for more than a decade now. Old men and moms getting attacked and bloodied, and minivans getting broken into at Trump rallies is how it started, because they were all literal Nazis for wanting to bring back American manufacturing and make sure the country for America, by America, was for Americans. And they have this kind of hate. And here's the dumb thing, though. I mean, I tell you what, if you think that Charlie Kirk was on these campuses debating kids, and I never really heard him say a harsh word, like, at least in private company, yeah, sure, political rhetoric, sure, we all can be sharp in that. But a sweet guy, if you think he was one of the mean ones, well, I think these guys have another thing coming, because he was not a radical figure. If Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA is the bar for radicalism in America, and dangerous radicalism, that shows you that any one of us is a target, and a legitimate target, according to these people.
I mean, one of the things that just comes out of this, Chris, for me is, I mean, as soon as you hear the news and start to grapple with it, I mean, there's an element of defensiveness, or they're coming for all of us, right? I mean, that's political violence. Again, we don't know what the causes were. This could be a crazy person, but it was a political assassination, regardless, in broad daylight. The effect of that is to say, it could be you, it could be you, it could be you, and we are going to take out your leaders. We are going to take out the people who have bright and promising careers. You know, we haven't even remarked upon the fact that this is a young man whose future was more than promising, who had already attained the heights of American politics for his age, who easily could have run for office, who easily could have, become an even greater media star, who was still dead. He's a great builder. I mean, he's a great builder of that organization. He built something out of nothing with no college degree that became a powerhouse. And, you know, the feeling that this kind of violence instills in people, and sometimes is intended to instill, is fear. It's to say, this could happen to you. How dare you guys? You're getting uppity. This is caused by, a crazy person maybe, but it was caused by your own violent rhetoric. That is absolutely where the left is going to take it. Indeed, they already are. And the upshot of that is to basically censor and to force people to self-censor and to force an entire movement to slow down. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. But what are your thoughts about that, in these initial hours? Because, boy, I mean, with the language of political violence is, this can happen to you. And if this can happen in broad daylight in America to a cultural figure, like you said, who wasn't even, it wasn't even just straight politics. He wasn't an elected politician. That's what political violence is intended for you to conclude. You're supposed to conclude that this could happen to you, and you all should be on notice. And we have a political left in this country that kind of shrugs its shoulders and both sides these things and lets it happen. And what I don't understand is how we just went through the 2 assassination attempts with Trump. And so adding this onto it now, this murder, senseless murder of Charlie in front of the nation, I mean, what the hell is going to happen?
So we'll give you the last word here.
It's like, I mean, I saw one of his young supporters and speakers in his tour say through tears earlier today, much as widow was supposed to tell the kids that dad went to a college campus and never came home.
Yeah.
And as my wife said to me, and as I'm sure your wife's going to say to you tonight, I mean, that could have been any of us. That could have been Benny. That could have been you. That could have been any of your friends. There's a real reason to be freaked out about that and to hug your kids when you get home. It's a terrible thing, and it's bigger than they realize.
Yes, it is the turning point. Chris Bedford, thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll have Steve Deace on. Steve has been allowed in Charlie's inner circle these last few months. We'll get his thoughts next. Well, it's no surprise. Steve Deace and I are pretty close friends, and he has let me into just his world of late, and that included a lot of Charlie Kirk. So we wanted to bring Steve on and get his thoughts. So Steve, thanks for taking the time on what is a very difficult day for everyone in our movement. But who is Charlie that you knew? Give us the sense of who the man was that you knew behind the scenes.
I have to tell you, I took my pastor's advice. I just kind of laid down on the floor, just prayed. What should I say when I come on here? And this is kind of what came to me. To his children, I think they need to know. In 20 years, I've done this, and I've not encountered anybody, even people in the pulpit, who cared more about the lost than your dad did. Who worked harder to go into places many of us had frankly given up on, and people that many of us thought could not be reached. He just had an extraordinary heart for people. And to his son in particular, I think you should know that when others ran, I'm sorry, I'm just very angry, sad. When others ran, your dad was brave. And when others fled, your dad stood in the gap. And that's why he's not with us now. But he left one hell of a legacy. And he was the best of us.
Amen to that. Amen to all that. I mean, it really is something that needed to be said. What needs to not get lost in this day are those little kids and their mother. So much of what we do is blather about abstractions. This is not abstract, and the heart of this tragedy is this man's family. And I think also, though, Steve, what you say is, I mean, it's hard to convey to people that, first off, a lot of people you see, on camera, a lot of faces you see on the screen, as we say, TV lies to you. Mm-hmm. And so you don't really know what they're like. You don't actually know. You might think you know. They project their personality, but you don't actually know what they're like in real life, as the kids say. And the one thing that really strikes me about today is people like yourself and all of our experiences with him were, no, you have to understand, this was a truly good man who mm-hmm. really was a remarkable soul, who wasn't just, he wasn't just trying to be an influencer, for God's sakes. Like, he wasn't, media wasn't his main thing even. He was building up Turning Point. He was going out there trying to win over people one by one, to win over the youth of America. And, even when he attained a lot of influence and used it, as you know, he used it to help staff the Trump administration, to help guide, politics. And so it's very rare in the world that we inhabit, which is both politics and media, to find people who are actually trying to do the thing.
Correct.
And I was saying earlier, we played a little bit of his interview about statesmanship, and he just nailed it. He understood, and he said basically that. He said it's rare that you find people who actually want to accomplish real things, and that's what he was all about.
We went to, we had dinner recently. Actually, I have a few dinners recently, but the first one we had was after we both spoke at his Freedom Night in America that they do at his home church out there, Freedom City Church in Phoenix area. And it was me and my pastor and Charlie and Lucas Miles, who heads TP USA Faith, and his wife. And just to reinforce what you just said, even in that setting, he could have played big man on campus. He did not do that. He truly had a servant's heart. He truly wanted to see the gospel restored to its rightful place in the country, to see American exceptionalism restored, but most importantly, to see lost people found and restored. And I remember telling him at that dinner, Matt, I said, and I had just spent the day with him and his whole team at TP USA all day, and really for the first time, I'd been around the organization a little bit, but for the first time really truly got to see what it was he was building. And I think I told you and a few people when I got back, I've just never seen anything like this on our side, what they're building there. And I told Charlie as we were leaving dinner that night, I said that you're going to be the most consequential figure that didn't hold elected office in my lifetime. That essentially you are what happens if Rush Limbaugh and the Heritage Foundation have a baby. And you are building the ultimate weapon of mass destruction in the battle against the spirit of the age. And I think maybe that turned out to be more right based on the events of today than maybe even I suspected. And this is going to leave a huge void. And I've heard from people I know around the country, what do we do? We have to fight now. We're never going back. I think a lot of times I remember being on CNN with Brian, what's-his-face, all pretending to be concerned about when those Republican congressmen almost got shot to death in that softball field. And what happens if Steve Scalise gets up that morning and decides he can't go because he's the only one that has Secret Service detail as a member of House leadership? Rand Paul and a bunch of those guys are dead probably. Or what happens last summer if Trump doesn't turn his head? Well, I think we're about to find out now. Sadly, what would have happened if those moments had turned out differently? And it's going to take a lot of prayer and a lot of prudence. This is not a time to stifle your anger, but this is a time to control it, to use it. And ultimately, what we have to do here is fight. But first, I think we have to cry, and I think we have to mourn. And that'll give our anger time to subside to a stabilizing place so that in our anger we do not sin. But I will tell you, I am as angry today as I can remember in a long, long time.
July 13th, we all looked at that date and we knew, as you said, Trump turns his head, and we avoided the unthinkable that day. And we look now, right? Today is now September 10th, which will now go down in history today. And it just, to me, Steve, clarifies even more. We know we're in a battle of good versus evil. And it's just one more sign that this is playing out in front of our faces.
We are watching actual spiritual warfare happen in the natural realm. There is, for the first time in at least a generation, a real resistance to the evil that has overtaken this country, and Charlie was one of the leaders of that resistance. And you can always tell when the spirit of the age feels really cornered, whether that spirit of the age is what we face politically today, or it's named Nero, or other names and manifestations it's taken on, Pharaoh, throughout the course of history. It always, when it's cornered, reacts by martyring us. And those are always the saddest moments. But it also is indicative of an enemy that understands he's on his last moment. And because he's desperate now. He's losing control of the narrative. He's losing control of the institutions. He doesn't have as much sway as he thought. So he has to start eliminating high-value targets. And I think that now, for the rest of us now, this leaves a huge void. But the amount of people, I can just see it in my social media feed. It's so funny. People, frankly, I don't necessarily always like and don't always like me, and yet we all loved Charlie to death. We are going to need each other now more than ever before. This is a true cold civil war now. This is a true spiritual battle, and we are going to need each other more than we ever did before. And we're going to have to show, you know, I was blown away when I saw the sign in front of him, "Prove Me Wrong." Yep. Guys, I was asked to join that tour. In fact, I'm scheduled to go do one of these at the University of South Carolina. "Prove Me Wrong, Jesus is Lord." I'm scheduled to do one of those with TPUSA next month. And I was asked to do several more. It's just my schedule wouldn't let me do it until next month. And we can't operate in fear. He was murdered at 200 yards, according to reports. There's no private security detail that will save us from an enemy that has that level of evil in his heart and that much of bloodlust for who we are and what we believe. And so we're going to fight back. Perfect love casts out all fear. We're going to stand in the gap. We're going to fight for the lost harder. We're going to go where we're not welcomed more. And you know what? I checked the death rate. It remains 100% every single day. And we're all going out somehow. And I can't think, for me, speaking personally, if I'm going to go out, I'd rather go out on my feet, standing up for what I believe in, than 20 years from now, 30 years from now, my wife's changing my diapers. Unfortunately for Charlie, he leaves behind a young family and everything else that makes this very personal and very difficult and really hits this home. But I think for those of us now, particularly the men of the older generation, the Gen Xers, Matt, like us, whose kids are grown maybe, or growing up, or have left the house already, this is, in many respects, Charlie was doing the work that the Boomer and Gen X men should have been doing, whose children are gone, whose children do not need dad there all the time and have their own lives now. This is the time now that we have to step in and become the men God always created us to become the leaders we were always supposed to be. This is the time. And if we won't answer the call here, then just maybe we never will.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think that is a takeaway where channeling anger is going to be key now. I can't even think of I'm not letting myself think of the images that I saw repeatedly today.
I know.
Because I don't know what I would say on air.
I just started sobbing. I know what you're probably talking about. And as soon as I saw it, it reflexively began to sob here in my house. Yeah.
Yeah. But what you're saying, this call to, no, there's no one who's going to stop. There's no one who's going to give up. This makes clear how the problem has metastasized. And also, as you say, that there's a way in which this is a sign of desperation. Or something being cornered, and I agree with that. I just I don't fear death. I don't think at all. I'm probably weird that way, but I do fear not getting enough done. In the time that we're given. And when you look at the life of Charlie, man, that guy got a lot done. He got a lot done in the time that he was given, and he was going to remain an inspiration to millions of people. Many of whom are, more than devoted followers. Their life was actually impacted in some very serious way that's not going to go away. They're not going to forget him, and none of them are going to forget what happened today. So what's really important is that this day is channeled in the way that you say towards continuing to fight for the good.
Amen. And there's a thought today that it's not about the destination, it's the journey. That's wrong. It's all about the destination. It's all about the destination. And I think when you look at, did we do enough? Did we get enough done? Look at the legacy Charlie leaves behind at not yet 32 years old. Look at the shoes that are left to be filled by his void, which is why the enemy targeted him today. But that needs to inspire us. It's Charlie's legacy looks at us and says, I dare you to do better.
Steve Deace.
We're going to have to do better.
It's a difficult day, and we are all going to be crying and mourning, and we are all going to continue that throughout the night. And I so appreciate you taking the time to come on in what is a very difficult day.
You bet, guys. God bless. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, Matt will give you his final thoughts. He knew him better than anyone. Well, if we go back to last December, we took our show on the road. We went down to Phoenix, Arizona for Turning Point USA, and it was there where I got to see Matt and Charlie Kirk interacting, and at one point, Charlie brought Matt up onto his stage and had Matt on his show, and he was just telling everybody there in the audience, he said, "Oh, Professor Peterson, he taught me everything I know," and the crowd loved it. Matt, of course, loved it at that point, but it was just one of those moments where, it was just a nice little gathering that was there in front of the stage, but it just shows, just who Charlie was, the relationship that you had with him, and how special that was.
Yeah, and of course, lots of people knew Charlie better than me. Lots of people taught him more than I did, but he's a very gracious soul. And I just want to emphasize a few things here at the end of the show. Because, well, there's other people who might have, know him better, other people who taught him. I did know him, and I did teach him a little bit. And I think that what I'm coming to you right now and saying to all of you out there is very heartfelt, and it comes from being a connoisseur of these political and media figures. My job really, at the end of the day, is to help push the good forward, good, true, and beautiful forward, whether it's in media, politics, and whatever. And I'm dedicated to that. I'm a lifer. That's what I do. That's what I've done. And so when you do that, you meet a lot of different people throughout the country. You meet a lot of different figures. You meet politicians. You meet people in media. You meet business people. You meet all these folks who are supposedly part of this movement or trying to move things forward and, save America, make America great again, solve the looming problems of our time. And some of them are intellectuals. Some of them are doers. Some of them are thinkers. But what you notice along the way is that, when it comes to any movement, most people are pretty normal, and a lot of times, they do it. It becomes a thing they get a paycheck for, right? You do it, you go in, you get the paycheck. You're political, you're on the right, you're on the left, you get the paycheck. You're in the media, you say things, and eventually, you're just doing it for the paycheck, or you're doing it for, the fame. You like the fact that people know who you are. You love your position in the movement. You like the restaurants you go to where people recognize you. You like all the little things, little perks that come from being part of a political movement and in the media. And, so when you go about your life and you are a lifer and you're actually trying to get things done, you assume that most people aren't actually in it for the right reasons. So many people are in it for not even bad reasons necessarily, but watered down reasons. They're not really doing the thing. And ladies and gentlemen, the thing that you need to remember most is that Charlie was always about actually doing the thing. He was doing everything he did not for the sake of, power, money, and chicks. This was a guy who was dedicated to actually helping people and actually helping save this country that he loved so much. And the seriousness that was at the heart of his soul, even though he wore it lightly, he was very humble, very kind, very easygoing, didn't look down on people. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? He's one of those guys. He at the heart of all that was a deadly seriousness and dedication to making America great again. That was at the heart of his soul. He knew what statesmanship was, and like he said to me about politicians, you want the politicians who actually want to get things done, and they're very few and far between. Most of them want to be influencers. Most of them want the shallow pleasures of whatever the position gets them. Charlie was always deadly serious and dedicated to God, to his family, and to country. And that is why this is such a tragedy. Of all people that they could have chosen to take out, they took out one of the actual leaders of this movement. That's why it hits everyone in the heart today. That's why everyone can't help but express their emotion on air. They can't control themselves because this is someone who was actually dedicated to the cause, and therefore, because of his dedication, he actually did more good than most do in the movement in 2 lifetimes in the time that he had with us. I can't tell you the amount of influence, right, that he built up over the years and then used for the good during, just the last year. It's remarkable. And that's why what happened today was also a political assassination and a tragedy for which there will be justice, that there'll be time to talk about later. It's also a tragedy that is going to forever change a generation of people on the right who are not going to look at American politics the same. And there's going to be a depth of seriousness now coming to the young right that maybe wasn't there before, because this hits hard for everyone, because Charlie was an aspiring statesman and a lover of this country.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk was already legendary in his own right, and that will only grow now. And it's whether you knew him in person like Matt did, or if you just listened to his podcast and you consumed what he was doing, or you were going out as part of the Turning Point organizations and going out into some of the events that he held. You felt like you knew Charlie, and that was so powerful. And that's why we will continue, not only just today, the memorials will go on for Charlie for the next few weeks and months and years, because he was a real one who people could see that he was trying, as Matt's saying, to actually do the thing. And that's why we see Donald Trump here, who's going to put the flags at half-mast. He said, in honor of Charlie Kirk, a truly great American patriot, I am ordering all American flags throughout the United States lowered at half-mast until Sunday evening at 6 p.m. So whether you're the president of the United States or you were a college student on campus, Charlie Kirk made you feel like this was a battle worth fighting for, and that this was attainable, and it was a fight that was worth having.
And that's the spirit in which we're going to move forward. Because the spirit in which we move forward is, no, he was right about a lot of things. He was right that the young were not always going to be on the other side. He was right that Donald Trump could win this last election. He helped make those things happen. He was right that we could reform the Republican Party and actually get leaders out there who would represent the people. He was right that you can go into college campuses and change hearts, minds, and souls. And he was right about the spiritual dimension of all of this, which that he didn't lose sight of. In fact, he gained, he became more aware, I think, and more vocal about the importance of his Christian faith and the importance of Christianity to the United States of America and its health and the health of its citizens. And that's the spirit in which we move forward. These sorts of attacks they want to muddy the waters. They want to make you feel fear. They want to make you feel afraid. And as if there's no way in which you can win, no matter what you do, in broad daylight, they can murder people. That's not something that we're going to allow to happen. That's not something that Donald Trump is going to allow to happen. And the first step is really to move forward in the spirit that Jill just talked about. And I'll tell you, I think that we're going to see in the next few days, you're going to see, this outpouring of grief, of sorrow, and of love for Charlie Kirk and his family.
Yeah, we had Turning Point USA. It was established 13 years ago, and I am absolutely certain that that will not come to an end with the death of Charlie Kirk. They will not succeed in taking his voice out of the public space, because there will be people that have watched that today that will rise in Charlie's place. It's not going to be easy to do. He was one of a kind, but their mission ultimately will fail.
This movement is young, in part because of what Charlie did. If you look at who's going to church, the generations that go to church the most, it's not old people, it's the young Gen Zers and the millennials, especially the males. Those are the guys who are listening to Charlie. They're going to church in greater numbers than older people. Those are the people who are most MAGA, who are most pro-Trump. This young generation, the generation that Charlie helped create and inspire, they're going to pick up this baton, and they're not going to be messing around, and they're not going to be happy about it either. And I think that the energy that will be channeled, and even the anger, will be channeled towards good, because you see the seriousness right now in America of the very real divide that hasn't gone away in this country. Donald Trump winning was a great, beautiful thing that's going to help save America, but it didn't ultimately save America in one act, right? We are still a heavily divided country, and there is one side that is irresponsible, has been irresponsible, and that needs to be taken to task for its rhetoric and for some of its people's actions. And that's the next step here. The next step here is to move forward with the boldness and positivity of Charlie to continue to build this movement, which will absolutely happen. And the outpouring that you're going to see in the coming days, months, and years is going to be incredible. It's going to be like things you've never seen before. That's already increasing. It's going to increase more. And the other side of that, what are we going to see? We are going to see a movement that becomes much more serious about holding a lot of the people who are irresponsible and dangerous in positions of power in this country in media and culture to task. And that is something that is a task for the future. But tonight, ultimately, we mourn for Charlie. We pray for the repose of his soul and pray for his family and friends.
I don't know how you've been able to hold it together. This is a day that a lot of people, as we've seen from our guests, Chris Bedford, Steve Deace, everyone feels angry. It's okay to feel angry today. It's okay to feel sad today. And that's where we are. We'll move on tomorrow, but today we're going to be angry.
Yeah.
And we're going to be sad.
And it's okay to mourn. It's good to mourn. Grief is something that people need to let flow through them. Because these feelings are natural and they are real. And today we all mourn for Charlie.